Welcome back to the Scandi Shift, the podcast where two expat moms talk honestly about surviving, thriving, and building a happy life in Denmark. I'm Selena.
And I'm Meg. Now, before we jump into today's episode, we wanted to say a big thank you
Yay!
to all our regular listeners. We're still warming up here, but the reception so far has been absolutely amazing, and we can thank you guys enough. The big news is we have charted in the top 200 on Apple in Denmark.
I know, it's so crazy. And yeah, like I said, it's early days. I mean, this is what, episode 7?
Yeah. Well, this will be,
Be a bonus.
Yeah. It just felt like such a fun achievement. And I know we've been doing it for just 2 months now. So this is all thanks to you guys and your engagement, and we're really happy.
Yes, and genuinely, thank you very much. We're like two gigging schoolgirls when we saw that. I'm screenshotting, sending it over, and we were like 136. It's not like we were top 10.
But no, we'll take it. We'll take it. I mean, let's be honest. We are no Oprah, although one day.
We were, but we were higher than Oprah. And that's, I think, what won it for you. I might do like, hello, we're doing better than Dua Lipa and Oprah right now in Denmark. So let's get happy about that.
I know. I was like, did we beat Oprah? They're like, a day? That's amazing.
It's not words that you think will ever come out of your mouth.
No, never. Never.
But we just please people want to listen. All joking aside, as we do for this post, these types of moments and special updates and other content, to be honest, about our lives in Denmark on Instagram. So if you're not already, please follow us at the Scandi Shift, because we also really like engaging with people on there and DMs and stuff. So
yeah, and it's a good way to reach us too if you want to suggest an episode or even do a quick write-up. We're happy for that. Okay. So today we are shifting gears a bit. We came off of a really fun episode, Danes Are So, and that was really lighthearted. Most of our content is pretty lighthearted, but we wanted to go a little deeper today. So not to scare you off, we're not going to completely reverse course and every day it's going to be heavy and intense. But I think there are some things about living here that sometimes do feel heavy and intense, and we wanted to address those as well. So today we're talking about belonging and exploring different angles and a few things nudges to change direction for the episode today.
Yeah, so we've been circling this idea for a while in terms of what belonging looks like, where we felt it, where we didn't. And then separately, one of the things that just added some fuel to this conversation is we both saw this post from an expat who was leaving Copenhagen after spending a couple of years here, raising a young family, and then decided that actually we were going to move on because they didn't feel like they would ever be accepted. And obviously that's quite sad.
Yeah, it was really sad. And it landed with us because all of the people that were commenting, they really expressed very different thoughts about belonging and what it looks like. And in fact, it's not clear cut. It is very complicated subject, thought, idea, whatever you want to think about it as. But it's hard. And I think because we talk about being here, moving in Denmark, having Danish spouses, we have a sense that we want to be here long term and we want to have a sense of belonging. So we wanted to cover it today.
Yes, exactly.
There are mixed replies on the comments, practical suggestions like try smaller towns. Copenhagen can be really hard to be in. And obviously the usual language stuff like, are you speaking Danish? Did you try and speak Danish?
Every day. Is the optimum word there.
Jeg kunne høre den hver dag, tak.
Bravo. But I think all of this, the sentiment all felt very familiar. This mix of emotions, there's some empathy, some defensiveness, some bias, and then some outright frustration. And all of it just sort of pushed us into digging into a bigger question, actually.
Yes, 100%. And that question really is, what does belonging actually mean? And what is the measure of whether someone truly belongs in a country that isn't their birthplace? How do we decide that? Who decides that? So you can already probably feel that this is not going to be a single episode. Obviously, it's a big question, but it's something I wanted to tackle. And I said, we'll unpack this across a series of episodes over the next few months.
Yeah, we'll definitely touch on it. We'll still be back for, more light-hearted content as well. Because, you can laugh a little bit about some things here, but it's not exactly a joking conversation.
No.
That's a pretty, somewhere to feel really like home.
Yes.
Which is kind of like what we're all aspiring to when we change countries, right? We want to make it home. So when we're talking about belonging and what it means, I think we should really start with what it isn't. Because I think the term fitting in often gets used interchangeably with belonging. And I hear this all the time. And they're not the same thing, but people do talk about them like they are.
I agree. They're not. Fitting in is adapting your behavior and to match expectations around you, right? You are just one of many. Learning the norms, picking up social cues, figuring out how things work. But belonging, that feels deeper. It's more of a feeling of acceptance, being seen, connected, like you're part of the fabric and not just dressing for the role.
Exactly. And if you think about it, fitting in is the behavioral, it's practical based. Belonging is emotional.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Do you see where we're going with this? We're getting deep already.
Look at us. We put our philosopher hats on today.
Welcome to Meg and Selena's world of wisdom.
But it is something that we really care about.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, you need to do the behavioral stuff because that's going to help you move closer to belonging. But they fundamentally mean different things.
And when we hear people talking about their experiences here and realize you can fit in really well and still not feel like you belong, right? So you can have done all of those things. You can, on the surface, look like you're there and not have a sense of like belonging or even an anchor here.
Yeah, precisely. So when I first moved here, as an example, all my, let's call them fitting in wins, is like life admin. So all the tick box activities, the cure headache that you experience when you move here of registering at the commune, getting your NEM ID. Yes, I lived here pre-MIT ID.
Look at you, ancient knowledge here.
I'm by now. But, setting up, figuring out a bike, learning what work attire means, that was a real thing for me. Like trainers and jeans were not my usual get up in London.
Yeah.
And I do mourn for those dresses and heels sometimes. But sometimes, not that practical here.
I do. You are very stylish. When we go out, you bring a very lovely style that I'm like, Jesus, my years in San Francisco have deadened my sense of style. I always have to feel like I had to step it up a little more.
She's never said that to you before.
Oh, it's true. I haven't. Yeah, mine was a lot of the same, but the biggest was scheduling everything, right? Really scheduling for me was a big change. I'm changing my language to match plans based on week, right? So people that are not Danish, or I guess even French, the French use this too. Yeah. When they make plans, they reference it in week 10, week 20. Oh, are you free week 17? And you're
what date is that? Like in every single time. I still do it now. I mean, I know what week 1 is, and I know generally week in between that.
So annoying. But it also going to the 24-hour clock. Now, I had lived in Italy, so I was used to the 24-hour clock, like talking about 1 p.m. being 13. So in the States, we call that military time because it's regular time and military time. But when you live in Europe, it's just time, folks. It's just time.
Analog or 24 hours digital time. That's it. No, but seriously, all those live admin, the social cues, adapting, the fitting in obviously matters. They help you reduce the friction, they make daily life smoother, and they also make you feel like you're making progress. And for me, that was so important at the start. I'm like, yay, I'm official, I'm in the system, I'm riding a bike.
You're given a bank account.
Exactly.
That's a big deal. That was a big deal. But even when you're doing all of that, it doesn't actually automatically create that rooted feeling, right? You don't really have a rooted feeling. You're just, oh, look, now I have less on my to-do list.
No, it's true. It opens the doors, but it doesn't necessarily make you feel like you live inside the house.
You're knocking on the door still. You at least found the address.
And language, of course, is something that we feel we need to explore as part of this whole mini-series. And we kind of are choosing to ignore that aspect a little bit because it's probably a big topic in and of itself. But we are going to loop back to that because I have my own thoughts, so does Meg, especially after living here for almost 9 years and not really speaking it.
Yeah, not really speaking to it.
That is a confession. Yeah, anyone on here doesn't know me.
Now, meanwhile, she has a quite good accent when she's speaking. She's like, I don't really speak it, but I hear you speaking it. You like sly speak it.
I do. But I speak it. But where I sly speak it is like in the schoolyard. I had a vertigo, but basically no one's going to correct me. I each go at it.
You're like hacking at it. You're like, yeah, I got this.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Selena, when did you first have the feeling of maybe not fully belonging somewhere? Was it here when you moved to Denmark, or have you had that before?
Yeah, it wasn't here. I can pinpoint the feeling. I think this is such a complicated topic.
And this is opening up. We're opening ourselves up on this episode.
I don't think I've ever really, I'm not sure I've really ever talked about this before, but it's just hard to put it into words. So it's not one single moment or a person that made me feel like that. It was like a slow build of small things across years. So this slight background, I grew up in a very rural place. And there was community and I had friends and I was getting first boyfriends. I'm talking about when I was much, much, much younger here at start of high school. I played sports, but underneath all that, it was always this sort of persistent sense of just, I belonged somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's so cheesy when you say it.
But it had like a pull. It was more like a pull.
Yeah. Right? And I constantly felt that. And I think the older I got, that got stronger.
Yeah.
And then I remember the first time that I actually said it out loud was to my mom. And I was 12. That's why I talk about this time. And my mom still reminds me actually of this time. So we were on a shopping trip. We were sitting outside a cafe, Manchester. And anyone who knows Manchester, it is a far more grey than Copenhagen. So if it's not raining, that's great. If it's sunshine, it's like hallelujah kind of come by our moments. So this was one of those rare moments. So we're sitting outside, clouds parted, and I needed like SPS 50 in like 12 degrees. But we were there and I just mentioned to her that I just wanted to live in a city when I was old enough. And then that moment just became like a goal of mine and the thing that I chased until university. And I think simply because I craved bigger, faster, and more diverse than where I was from. And honestly, I don't think small towns really suit my patience level.
Huh? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, my patience level on any level. And what do I mean? So for anyone who knows me, I'm impatient, private, which is haha, I know, jokes on me now. I avoid drama at all costs. Those are genuine things about me. So as you can imagine, growing up in a small town where everybody knows everyone.
Yeah.
There's no mystery. And if you were different, you just step out. But I did fit in. So back to this point, on the surface, I absolutely fit in. But it always felt like hard work and never peace. And I was constantly running through plans and quietly plotting to escape to somewhere where I could just breathe and finally be my full self. I wasn't just trying to fit in, and I was actually feeling at peace inside. That's what I mean. Like, it's a little bit of a difficult thing to explain.
But did you find that once you left and you went off to university, did you have that same feeling, or did you feel like it?
Interesting. No. So I met the life goal. I went away to university and I was in Liverpool. So, big cosmopolitan city compared to where I was from. And I honestly loved my time there. And I met one of my oldest, dearest friends while studying. But overall, it just felt like moving from A to B. It was necessary, but never going to be home because it is a little transient university. So that real belonging, that feeling of peace that I was kind of chasing and didn't come until I was 30 and I moved to London.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should caveat, I've had times where I felt like I belonged, but they were more like fleeting and not long lasting, where I just thought this is actually where I could stay and be happy and be all at peace.
Yeah.
But that happened for me And I honestly, in the first year when I moved to London, I changed careers. So that was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found an extraordinary circle of friends, and many of whom I'm still close with today. But if I had just changed careers, I'm not sure that I would have found the same peace. I believe it came from finding people with similar values,
Yeah.
undramatic, not gossipy, super supportive, women for women, my really empowering group. They worked hard, we played hard. And then soon after, I met my husband.
Yeah.
So, maybe it was just being in the right headspace that meant that I could open up and be in a long lasting relationship and finding that peace of mind. I don't know. Maybe not. Could have just been a huge coincidence. But in summary, for me, achieving life goals did not equate to belonging. I think that happened organically through finding my people. So you hear the village and about this. I really believe in it. I mean, my friends are my family in Copenhagen. You guys are super important to me. And then the one last thing I will say is that with one or two exceptions, the interesting thing is all of my friends in London were foreign. I was the token local in the group.
Really? Okay, that's crazy. That's crazy.
All right, it is, right?
Yeah. Now you're the token minority.
I was the local. I had one or two exceptions, but generally when we went out in this big girl group, I was the only Brit in London on my route.
That's so cool. Look at you. Making others feel welcomed and creating an entire batch of family. I love that. I love that.
What about you, Meg? What was your first experience of feeling like you don't belong?
Okay, so I will say this touches really close to home for me. Because for me, like you, it didn't start in Denmark. It started honestly as a child, very similar to you, but like earlier. So I'm biracial, and I grew up at a time when being biracial wasn't that common, or like coming from mixed backgrounds wasn't super common. It wasn't, I mean, this isn't 1930. It's like there were some people, but it was not as, I'd say, prevalent or even maybe widely accepted as it is now.
Yeah. Do you mean in the US? Yeah, specifically in Washington where you grew up there? Because I see it would have differed in states as well.
Yeah, I mean, states would have been a much crazier. It was more common, more accepted in Washington, D.C. It's an international city. Lots of people look different, but kind of similar to you. I mean, I grew up in a big, quote, big city, but Washington, D.C. is actually a very small town. When you live there, when I was growing up, there was less than 500,000 people that actually lived in D.C.
That's much smaller than people probably realize.
Yeah, much, much, much smaller. And so when you start, taking that up and how many children there are, then everyone, much similar to you, everyone knows each other. You end up mixing in the same school. Yeah, it's a small community. But I feel like for me, there is always this subtle question of where do I fit in? Because I didn't look like either one of my family, like either side of my family. I looked a little different than both of them.
Yeah.
And so there was that outer fitting in. And they say that it's really hard when you come from mixed cultures of where do you belong? There's just an assumption that you're going to sit in one or sit in the other. And you have to choose. And sometimes I felt like I just didn't belong anywhere in particular. And yet everywhere at the same time.
And that's such a different starting point.
Yeah.
As a belonging.
Yeah.
Than what I have. Right?
Yeah. And I really kind of learned to code switch and to read rooms and sort of figure out what part of my personality do I lean into a little bit more to feel like I belong or to even fit in, that kind of combination of the two. And then just how do I find my space? And for me, it was very similar. It wasn't just like I'm finding my space with my family. It was finding my space and my belonging with friends, with people that shared my interests, that really understood my thoughts or my feelings or things like that, rather than like looked like me, because there's no one that's going to look like me.
But did that happen for you in Washington there?
I think it did happen a little bit later. I did have some really, really close friends, but I think it took a very long time for me to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be. I actually wrote my college essay about finding myself and finding my identity.
Cool.
Yeah, it was 8 pages long. but it was very heartfelt. But when I moved from, my hometown, I moved a lot as I got older. I went away to college. I was in Boston. I moved to Italy for some time. I was in New York. I lived in California, all of those things. And new cities, new communities, even, obviously with Italy, new countries. So I think I became good at fitting in, but belonging that was more layered. And honestly, although strange as it may seem, I think the very first time I felt I belonged outside of my friend network and some of my family was living in Italy. So the one and only time I fully lived in another country, it was living in Italy. And that was crazy for me because I moved there, never having visited there. I just studied Italian in college. And it was one of those things where, you had that pull. You talked about having a pull.
Yeah.
When I first started learning Italian, it's like I was meant to speak that language my entire life. I had this feeling of, oh my God, I'm meant to speak this language. And so when I moved there, I was like, I am meant to be here. And I felt like I finally belonged because it didn't matter what I looked like. I was exotic in the fact that I clearly had an accent when I spoke Italian, but my Italian got really fluent really quickly. And so it opened all the quote barriers I normally would have had it. And that's why language is so important to me. But it was also so many Italians looked so different. There wasn't a sense of oh, you're not blonde or, oh, you're not, brunette. Exactly. Italians just look so different that it was more about, oh, do you speak Italian? Do you understand this? And are you a part of us? That then I felt like I belonged.
So for you, language is tied directly to belonging.
Yes, it is 100%. It's the one thing that I think allowed me to feel like I belonged and open doors and remove those barriers that I think it's why I anchor on language so much here. When I moved here, I'm kind of trying to repeat what worked for me before.
I don't think it's a bad approach.
Yeah.
Let's say, because it's a huge part of getting over some of the barriers, right? It won't solve everything.
No.
You can speak all the Danish you want and be an innately bad person, and we're not going to make a single Danish friend, right? Let's be honest. So, good luck with that. But it definitely helps when you can speak the local language.
It was the access point for me, and then it helped everything else fit in.
Okay, so just to tie it back, language and friendship groups, yes, key for you. And I guess friendship groups were the biggest one for me. There were other thousands getting in the right career and being surrounded by those good people. And my husband, there's loads of different things. But yeah, at the core of it, before he came along, it was definitely the friends. Okay. And if we look at Denmark through this lens of belonging with, finding your people, finding your village, it's quite tricky sometimes here. If you come here and you think, I really want to make local Danish friends, and there's going to be a lot of nodding heads around this. The pace at which you build friendships here is completely different to anything I have experienced. Social circles, they're formed so early on. And there's all this thing about pace and patience, which of course I just talked about. You don't have any. But very little patience. I do have Danish friends, but I don't have patience. They're just willing to cut up with me. But it's one thing that I think is important here is it's realizing that most people here have deep roots, childhood friends, university networks, long-standing communities that they've been a part of. And when you arrive as an adult that thinks very naturally, I've moved to Denmark, I'm interested in living here, I want to be part of the community. Okay, I need to make Danish friends. Is that a logical next step? You're just stepping into something that I think is already mid-story.
Yeah, I think that is such a good way to put it. Mid-story, right? You're not arriving somewhere blank. They have all this history, understanding everything. You're arriving somewhere already woven together. You're stepping in the story they've already started creating.
Agreed. It actually is a very different thing to rejection.
Yeah.
They also need a reason to create space for you. Yeah. I have a friend right now who's relocating from one area to another, one of my Danish friends. She would definitely be in the market. She moves to the new place. It's far enough away from current friends. And as we already know, she's very open to international friends as well. So yeah, it's like I'm advertising her, but I'm not. It's just a good current example that I have now. But situations change. We can move away from childhood friends. So there is sometimes segues and openings, but it just takes time. And it's just trying to say that having the sense of belonging for me with the friends was just like a feeling of peace, surrounding myself with people who share similar values. They help me to be exclusively Danish.
Agreed. I think anchoring so much on just Danish friends, you will have a harder time finding your belonging. You will feel unaccepted for a while. And so you have to really get through that and have that be okay. And I think that's why the comment section of that post that we both saw and many posts that we've seen over the years and months, right?
Did our research on this.
Yeah, a lot of those. Why the comment section felt so layered to me and to you. Some people said, oh, it was geography. Copenhagen can feel fast, transient, all that stuff. But others implied it as effort on the person's part. Oh, did you try hard enough? Or did you really put yourself out there?
And we have those gatekeeping tones as well, that there's this sort of invisible line and you can either cross it or you don't. It's an absolute, of course it can change. You can feel like you really belong somewhere and then circumstances can change. And I don't think it's like an absolute thing.
So this kind of makes me wonder, is the route to belonging about this existential validation that other people say you belong? That, oh, yes, look, you did all the right things, so now you belong? Or is it about when we internally stop feeling like a guest or that we really have a place where we are?
I wonder if that will happen when we eventually get citizenship.
Oh my gosh, I'm so far away from that.
I better get this language down and maybe thing. But yeah, when I think about some of those moments that felt closer to belonging here specifically, they're kind of small. A Danish parent inviting us up to their summer house, sharing wine with neighbors in our building whilst the kids play together in the yard, or, doing joint play dates with school mom. Yeah, so important. And I think belonging, it looks kind of unspectacular. It's just like
it's a little step.
It is little things become bigger in terms of how you feel about the place, right?
Yeah.
And it's not being the international friend, just being a friend. That's what we all need. We need a lot of good friends. We do all our lives here, right?
I actually had a really good moment this past weekend where I went to this wine meetup and a friend, my sixth Danish friend that I mentioned in Danes Are So, she was there and she had actually invited some Danish people that she knew. And the wine ended and she's like, oh, hey, we're going to go to this a Danish beer bar. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go. So I had that moment when we were all riding our bikes at the next bar. And it felt like, I was like, wow, this is one small step forward for me to gaining more belonging and honestly deepening the friendship I have with this person. It is these small little steps. The things that you start to build your village, you build your friends, and it's not going to be this like,
it's definitely not overnight. It's slow. And I don't think people feel prepared for that. Moving from one country to another requires time, patience, and continued effort on all sides.
Yeah. So maybe it's slower here than other places. Maybe instead of 2 to 3 years, it's 3 to 5 years. But it's gonna happen. And maybe that's part of the tension. You're expecting it to be faster and it's not. But if you move somewhere and after 2 years, you still feel like you're an outsider or you don't have a belonging, how long is it normal, right? Quote, normal to wait? 5 years, 10 years, a generation? When do you feel like you belong?
As we mentioned at the beginning, this is not something that we're going to solve for in one episode.
No, because belonging isn't a checklist. It shifts and it can exist in one area of your life and then not another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is bigger than fitting in. I think that's the overall summary that we've got today. You can do all of the right things that feel like the right thing, but still not feel like this is really home and you're fully accepted.
Yeah, 100%.
And as always, we would love to hear from you on this topic. So if you ever felt like you fit in somewhere but didn't truly belong,
share the episode, share your thoughts with us. You can always email us, as we mentioned, scandishift@gmail.com or message us on Instagram @scandishift. And also Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Audible, anywhere you get your podcast.
All right. Tech for a day.
Tap for a day.